Okay, we live. Like we
Live
like
on
to
YouTube.
say.
Hey, hey, everybody.
Hello. We have a super fun topic today. Lisa, you want to tell them about it?
It's called Girl, You Need a Friend. You need to get you a friend.
Yes. We thought it would be good to have kind of a little bit more laid back, lighthearted episode. And who does not have relationship, friendship, stories, issues? The whole topic of women relationships can definitely be a tricky one. And if you're a woman listening, welcome to the ride. If you're a guy listening, well, I hope that you might find this episode to be a little more informative. Maybe you can figure out how we women tick a little bit by listening to us gab about women and friendships. But as dramatic and as weird as women friendships look from the outside to guys, they actually a lot of times feel that strange for us. Wouldn't you agree, Lisa?
Yes, yes, yes,
Like,
yes, yes.
I'll be telling Anthony like an issue, some like relationship issue I'm having in my life that's not him. And he'll just be like, you know what? Guys are so much more simple. Like, we
Yeah.
either like each other or we don't. And if I don't like you, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to hang out with you. And you women are like, you hang out, you don't even really like each other. It's just crazy.
Oh gosh,
So,
that just reminded me. It's a little bit of like cognitive dissonance. Like we want somebody who doesn't, it's almost like we want people that may not like us to like us,
that's what
which
it
is,
is.
it doesn't even make sense. So yeah, I mean, obviously we haven't gotten into this yet and it's going to, you know, uh,
Well,
go there, but still.
yeah, I mean, it's very true. I think sometimes we like the challenge, and women really have, I feel like more than men do, we really have this need to be liked. We want
Yes.
everybody to like us. Why are we like that? Even if we say, I don't care who likes me and who doesn't, we really do.
Yeah, we do.
Um, and so I think that's part of it is that, and I think that's just human nature. I'm not sure why God made women to need more, maybe acceptance than men. Maybe that's not true and it just seems that way. But so we have so much to talk about. And I kind of wanted to kick off this episode with a question to get you thinking. You can kind of answer it in your own mind. But the question is on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very fulfilled in your relationships, where would you rate yourself right now? And I guess I'm more referring to your friendships with other women because we're really
Mhm.
not talking about marriage in this episode. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate yourself? How loved and supported do you feel? That's the big question. So you can kind of answer that in your own mind. And Lisa, I kind of wanted to ask you, and I'm going to give my thoughts, but what is your personal definition of a solid friend?
So I would probably say, I was thinking about this earlier. I think authenticity is what's most important to me. Authenticity, loyalty, and I guess the last one would feel, I guess it's close to loyalty. I don't really have a word for it. Maybe you can help me with it. But somebody who's on my team.
Yes.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you agree with everything that I do or allow me to do whatever I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
That does mean I still want accountability, but
Mm-hmm.
that you're on my team even when I need the correction, even when I need the help, even when things may not be going so well. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? I don't
Like,
know if there's a word for that.
well, just supportive. It's in my list too.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
And I think to feel supported unconditionally, not just when you are being what they want you to be or
Yes.
who they want you to be, that can be a rare thing in women relationships. It's like as
Yes.
long as you're being and doing what they need, you're good, but they're not going to support the parts of you that maybe don't benefit them.
Mm-hmm.
Into that.
Yes.
So you said supportive, you said authentic. I missed your first one because my dog was barking and I had to close my bedroom door.
That it authenticity and then loyalty.
Okay, yes, for sure.
So, and I feel
Well,
like those flow together. You know what I mean?
absolutely. So what is your definition of loyalty? Because I've heard this so many times, even in like friendship circles, but even in with like leaders who they just say, I value loyalty. What does that look like to you in a relation, a friendship?
So when I speak of loyalty in a friendship, I'm just looking for somebody who is there. Mm-hmm. And I don't like to say always there because it's an absolute and life happens. Mm-hmm. But just someone who's there and constant and consistent.
Yeah.
And someone that I can call and say, hey, this is what's going on. I need you. Mm-hmm. That type of thing.
Yes.
Also someone who I can trust. I think loyalty and trust are like together. Mm-hmm. So I can trust probably 100%. I would say 100%. And who I know always has good intentions towards me, and someone who I know that's not going to, I guess, talk behind my back.
Yeah.
I don't mind if they talk about me. I don't mind if they use me as like lessons or examples or anything like that, but not completely derogatory where you're dragging my name through the mud.
Well, I think, for me, it would be whenever I've become close enough to someone to share, like to be vulnerable and share things with them. Mm-hmm. I want to know that they're not going to take that and tell other people or use it against me in some way.
So yes, that as soon as you said that, that is one thing that used to be my biggest fear, is people using information about me against me, using mm-hmm. it to dog me, to bring me down, mm-hmm. anything like that. I feel like, I'm not saying, when I say that I feel like I've moved to these places, I want you to understand, I'm not saying I'm there 100% mm-hmm. of the time, but there has been a shift. And so for me now, I'm really to the point where I'm just going to be myself. And if you want to use stuff against me, that's cool. Because I'm probably going to be like, yep, I did it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, for sure.
Because then it's in your boat. You know what I mean? It's in your court after that.
Well, what it shows you really is that they're not a person that you can have that level of relationship with, that like they can't handle your truth. Right. It's not that the truth that they might be sharing with others is embarrassing to you, but it kind of lets you know they're not a safe person.
Yes.
That's a pet peeve of mine because I am a really honest person. You know this about me. Like I don't hide my stuff. I don't hide my junk. Like I'm very self-reflective. I try to work on my issues. Right. And I don't know what to do with people who aren't honest and aren't like that. And sometimes I've learned when you share your stuff with people who are hiders, they will judge you secretly in their mind, and then they will use that against you, whether that's later or tell other people about it. And then it's a mess. So then it's kind of like, I kind of chalk that friendship up to, this is not somebody I can be close with.
Right.
This is more of an acquaintance level. I'm not probably going to share my heart with this person again.
Yes.
So we actually have some of the similar things. I just listed my definition of a solid friend in 3 words. First, I put someone who is interested. And I say that because there's such a thing as having a friend who says they're your friend, but then you find out they're really not interested in you. It's like, does that make sense? Like they're interested in what they gain from the friendship itself, but there's no interest in you. And one of the ways, like it takes me a while to figure this out about a person because I tend to like think the best about people at first. And then I realize we've been together like 15 times and I am just naturally a listener. I love to listen to people like share their hearts and things. But then I realized they never ask me how I am. Like they have never asked me about my life. They never, like they watch stuff I'm doing on Facebook, but they never say, hey girl, how's your podcast going? Or hey, how's this, how's your new job? Like they never ask. And it's a pattern. It's not like a once in a while they forget, but it's like a chronic pattern. That is a pet peeve of mine. If I get the feeling that someone is not interested in me as a person.
So I call that type of person a creeper.
Yeah.
That's what I refer to that as. Like, there are legit people, I think, that follow me, and then they go and they see what I follow, and then kind of bring that up in conversation. And I'm like, listen, I'm not that invested in you to go to your Instagram profile and see who you're following to determine what I'm going to say to you. Like, that's a little bit that's happened to me. In my opinion, you're borderlining on some psychopathic type behaviors. That I just think you have issues if you're doing that. Like, I'm not even, I know you're not going to take an offense to this. I'm not even that interested in your life to go to your profile to see who you're following, unless you're like, hey girl, I follow this person. I can't remember their handle, but go to my thing and then find it. Then I'm like, cool, because Rachel just gave me permission to go stalk her followers to figure out who she's following. But am I just going to go to your profile to see who you're following to bring it up in a conversation? No. No, I'm not.
Yeah, it's definitely strange when you know that the depth of relationship is not really there for people to know or bring up certain things about your life. Like, it's not there in real life, but they only know that because they're watching you from afar on social media.
So there are some people that know that I am ordained and I'm on staff at my church. So I think it's funny though, because they want to come to me and they want to feel like they can hold me accountable. And here's the thing, I'm not your pastor. I'm not your leader. Most of the time, I'm not even your friend. I'm an acquaintance. I owe, honestly, this is just how I feel. I owe you nothing. You're not following me. If you're not following me, why does it matter? Do you need stalking me and trying to find loopholes in my life? Is totally different than following me and seeing that my lifestyle is actually functional and working for me because it's biblical. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I know that's crazy, but people do that. And that's happened to me. And it weirds me out. I'm just going to be honest with you. Like, people like that, I'm like, okay. Like, I just have to step away. And
well, for those of you who might be listening that you're not on social media, first of all, let me just say you're probably smart. But that's a real thing in social media land, that there will be. I actually had a girl who I found out through the grapevine, was telling other people that we were best friends. And it was based on I do know her in real life, but in real life, we have never been friends. We've always only been acquaintances. Like, she's never anybody I'd gone to lunch with or hung out with in any personal capacity. But she followed everything I did on social media, which is fine, because when you put stuff on social media, you have to know that people are seeing it. They see you, they see your family or whatever. But then to take that to a level where she was actually trying to convince other people that we were close friends based on a social media connection. And so, do you know that whenever I feel like there's a person in my real life that is using my social media to be close to me instead of being close to me in real life, I will delete them. Like, because I value, like, usually a lot of times I value the relationship too much to let them feel like they know me through social media only, and they don't have to do the work of really knowing my life in real life.
Right.
It's dangerous to make assumptions about somebody based on only what you see through a screen. Like, you're just
exactly. Or if you only see that person like a few times a year. You understand what I'm saying? Like, if I see you just randomly out at places or someone else's house, most likely I'm not going to sit there and have a heart to heart with you because, one, we're not the only two there. There's other people there, but also because I only basically see you through social media. And a lot of times these people, like, I don't even, they do the stories at the top of Instagram. Like, there's a lot of people that I have just moved. Like, I don't want to see your story. Like, if I'm not watching your story, it's because I really don't want to be involved that heavily in your life. And that doesn't sound, some people might think that's rude, but I don't, I got to say this nice. No, I don't. I don't value the relationship enough to put the effort in to know what's going on in your life. Does that make sense?
Well, and also that's just setting boundaries around your time and your intake of information.
Right. and I don't, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'll like your photo, but I don't have time to watch all your clips on your
Yeah,
thing.
social media has made relationships in general, I think, much more complicated than they should be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's very easy for people to fall into mindsets and assumptions that are completely false. We are all guilty of it. I'm not saying that
Absolutely.
I'm not. It's easy to get your feelings hurt over things you think somebody's thinking because they didn't like your photo. They didn't heart your last post because, you know, in your mind, maybe they didn't like it. You know, there's
Yeah.
just social media, I think, has been as much good as there is in it, and it does bring some form of connection. It's a false sense of connection, and I think has made this whole issue, this topic that we're discussing, even more difficult. And the other two things, just to wrap up, my solid definition of a friend is supportive, um, meaning that they are truly for you. They're
Mm-hmm.
for you. And, you know, it kind of goes back to the being interested. You know, they're supportive of you as a person, not just the way that you benefit them. You can definitely tell just in the things I'm describing that I have some baggage around friendships, you know, friendships
Right.
where, you know, I walked away feeling like it was all about what I could give out and there was not a balance there. So I value them being interested in me, genuinely supportive and honest. And the honesty goes two ways, like being able to be honest with me. And I really value friendships that get to a level where they can correct me or say, this is what I see in you. And um, I like that. Like that's attractive to me because at least that lets me know where I stand, you know, and there's not like a false facade where they're trying to tell me what they think they want me to hear, but they're being
Well,
honest.
it's like having the two-way street. Like you can do it
Hmm.
both ways.
Yes.
And I feel like when somebody says that, they are wanting me to be the best me that I can be.
Yes.
So they're taking an interest, like you were saying, and they value me as a person. They value me enough to say, hey, I noticed this and I didn't know if, you know, if there was if there's a root cause, is there a wound around this?
Hmm.
You know, I just wanted to let you know this is something that I've seen and I want you to know, you know, I'm on your team and
Yeah.
I just don't want it to be detrimental to you, you know,
Yeah.
that type of thing.
Yeah.
So,
And the honesty being able to go both ways, whether it's
yeah.
them towards me and me towards them, and also us both being, you know, free and comfortable to be honest about our lives with one another and not, you know, feel like we have to
Hmm.
hide and pretend. There's a lot
Right.
of freedom and safety in a relationship where there's no pretending, there's no pretense. Um, I just really value that a lot. But I find that the friendships I enjoy the most and I find fulfillment in, because let's just be honest, wouldn't you say there's kind of different levels of friendships?
Oh yeah. Oh
Like
yeah.
I have a circle of friends, but I'm not the same level of friend with each one of them, if that makes any sense. And I think
Yes.
that is okay. And we're going to talk about friendship seasons in a bit, but I've learned that people serve different roles in your life. And so it's never a good thing to start comparing one friendship to another, because maybe God put this person in your life to help you grow in this particular area. And maybe he
Right.
put another person in your life for a different way. And one person is not going to meet all of our needs.
Right.
So that is helpful. But I find that the friendships I enjoy the most and just find the most fulfillment in are the ones that we are kind of going a similar direction spiritually and emotionally. Not necessarily that we're in the same life season,
Hmm.
but we're on this, not even necessarily that we agree in everything, but we're on the same path.
Right.
Um, and I have just a very small circle of those kind of friendships where we're going the same direction. We might be doing different things, but we are after the same thing.
Hmm.
Those are the ones that I enjoy because when I'm around that person, I just feel like I'm at home. You know,
Yes.
like you just some people, you just feel like at ease around them and you feel like they get you. Does that
Yes.
make sense?
Absolutely.
There is so much
Absolutely.
comfort in a person that you feel like just gets you in so many different ways because that's such a rare find.
I feel like those are the people that you don't have to give disclaimers for. Does that
Yep.
make sense? Like
Yep.
I've gotten to the point in my life where I just don't do disclaimers anymore. Like
Yep.
you get what you get. If you're going to throw a fit, there's the door, you know? And
Mhm.
it's not anything about me not wanting to improve myself, but I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to build relationship with you,
Yeah.
and so I'm thankful for those friends. One of them that I can think of off the top of my head is my friend Bree. She comes
Mhm.
over, and it makes me feel really weird because sometimes I suck at hospitality. I really do.
I
And
do
it's
too.
not because I don't want people over or I don't want to
Yeah.
serve them. I want them to feel like they're at home. So when
Yeah.
Bree comes over, I don't ever ask her if she wants anything to drink because she's welcome to go in my cupboards. She can go
Right.
get a drink out of the fridge. And it's not that I won't do it for her. It's just, she falls asleep on my couch all the time. Like she's told me before she feels at home. And so it's that
Mhm.
connection where you just feel like when you're with
Mhm.
that person, you don't have to entertain them. You don't
Yes.
have to be careful what you say around them. Now, there are some things that sometimes I'll say and I'll give a disclaimer just to make sure people understand my heart, because
Yeah.
the way that I'm getting ready to present something may not be, I may not be able to find the best way to present it. But
Yeah.
it's also those people that even when you don't give the disclaimer, they understand your heart and what you're
Mhm.
trying to say
Mhm.
without taking it, to another level or misinterpreting what you're trying to say. And
Yeah.
that makes you feel, it's almost like with friendship, you're just looking for somebody where you feel at home with, even when you're not at home, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a friend like that. Her name is Kim, and we've been friends for not super long. It's probably been maybe 5 years that we've been
Mm-hmm.
friends, so it's not like a, lifelong friendship thing, but, um, it's funny how we met because we actually met through social media. She started reading my blog before she met me in person,
Oh, okay.
and so she formed her first impression of me based on at the time, I was writing a story about a really dark part of my life,
Mm-hmm.
and so she formed her opinion of me actually based on me at my worst. That was how she met me, like, she met me at my absolute lowest place in my life, and then we met in person because our kids were going to the same, homeschool community, and she just came up to me one day and she's like, "I've read your entire story." And I absolutely love you because you are the most honest person that like, people are not that honest. Like, I guess
Right.
just the fact that I was, willing to be so vulnerable, and so we just, met. We ended up meeting for coffee, and we realized that we both are after the same things. We had a lot of just similar struggles and just similar things. And so she's that friend that I have that we don't have to see each other all the time. And right now, the way our life is set up, we don't have any way that our lives kind of naturally intersect. She
Right.
lives about 30 minutes from me. It doesn't matter how much time goes by, like, we always just pick right up where we left off. And I feel so at home in her house or in her presence,
Yep.
and I just really appreciate that, and I think that it's because I'm allowed to be me, I'm allowed to be vulnerable, and I know that she's not gonna judge me at my best or at my worst. And another part of being able to be vulnerable in friendships is being free to brag on yourself. Like,
Yes.
like to say, "Girl, Imma tell you that you should have just seen me today. It was actually kinda awesome." And they know you well enough to know you're not just, being prideful,
Prideful.
and
Yeah.
they can celebrate the good parts of you.
I think that's
So
key. What you
it
just said is celebrate the good parts of you. Like celebrate with you when things are going well, or when,
Mhm.
you know, my favorite thing is when God moves on your behalf and they rejoice with you. Like, let
Yeah.
me tell you what God did because this is unexplainable. And they're not
Mhm.
like, well, how do you know? Like people that are really, I guess, negative Nancy's. Sorry if there's any Nancy's listening, because that's no
We're
offense
not
to you. So it's like those people that can rejoice with you no matter what's going on. They
Yeah.
find the goodness and the joy in what you're going through,
Mm.
despite what's going on in their lives. They don't they
Mhm.
don't they don't zap your excitement from you because their life might suck.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found that the quality of the relationships that I have, first of all, I don't believe that you should have to have lots of friends to.
Right.
And I think that's the myth that we buy into, and social media, I think, has perpetuated that because, other people will see pictures of us or somebody else out with girls on a girls' night, and they'll just think, oh, that she has so many friends, and I don't. And the reality of it is, most of our friend circles, as far as really close friends, are very are very small.
Mm-hmm.
Difference
Mm-hmm.
between acquaintance and friends. And I think that that's okay. Like even Jesus, he had only 12 disciples and only a few of them were actually really close to him. And then everybody outside of the 12, he of course spent time with, ministering to, teaching, healing, but he had his small core group, and I think he chose them I think he was very intentional
Mm-hmm.
on how he chose his core group, and I think that we should be as well. So we shared stories about, you shared about Bree, I shared about Kim. So I'm going to share this friendship story um, about a person that actually is in my life. But it's kind of a friendship thing that I'm going to talk through with you. So listen up.
I'm
Okay.
listening, girl. I'm listening.
So in this relationship, it's someone that I care deeply about. But I started to realize pattern of, like I said, I'm a good listener. I think that's why I went into psychology. Like I love listening to people. I love like helping people figure out what's at the root of this. But I started to realize that the relationship was one-sided. I knew all about this person, but they knew nothing about me.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to get resentful about that. But I didn't say anything about it. So I would leave every interaction and kind of think to myself, gosh, like she doesn't care about me. But I
Mm-hmm.
never vocalized it. And looking back, this went on for years, honestly. And what happened was I became more and more resentful.
Mm-hmm.
And then little things that they would do or didn't do would be monumental to me because I already had this root of feeling like, well, they're not interested in me. It's all about what they can pile on me. And so it just and so I've had to go back and do a lot of like retrospection, but also healing, which brings me to this point. As we grow and become more healed and whole, our relationships will change. We will actually lose some relationships, and
Mm-hmm.
some relationships will grow because we are growing. And we will lose people because sometimes when we're growing, other people are not growing with us.
Right.
And so this is kind of the place that I, found myself at. And then I started to feel really lonely because when we don't feel seen, we feel lonely, even with people around us. And so I did just a little bit of research on women relationships specifically. And the research is really showing that our culture, and specifically American culture, is fractured with an epidemic of loneliness. And most people either don't acknowledge it or they don't even realize it.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is a lot of times we feel like the cure to not having the relationships we want to have is to meet more people.
Right.
But the problem isn't really that we don't know enough people, because actually research shows that we know more people than any time in history, but yet so many of us feel like we don't really have anyone to confide in. And there's a difference between having um a circle of acquaintances and like someone or people you can confide in, like someone who's your safety net. And so the fact that a lot of times we as women will feel lonely is not because we lack interaction. It's actually because we are lacking intimacy in our relationships. Intimacy is the key. So we don't need better friends, we need higher quality friendships.
Right.
And the actual definition of intimacy is where two people both feel seen in a safe and satisfying way.
That's
So
good.
when I asked that question, how fulfilling are your relationships on a scale of 1 to 10? I don't know what your answer was, but research shows that over 6,000 women, 50 to 70% of women scored a 5 or below.
Wow.
That's a lot of women, and that's a really low score. So it's not for lack of being around each other, but we're not having real and true intimacy where we're actually sharing our hearts, we're doing life together. So, the real issue when we start to, and we've all been there, some of us might be there right now where you're just feeling like you're lacking in the area. We're
Mm-hmm.
hungry to be close. And to be honest, Lisa, is that not, even though it's virtual, that's part, I think, of what initiated us to want to do Revolutionary Woman, in not just the podcast, but to create the community, to do the
Mhm.
roundtables. And even though I know it's virtual, which will never replace face-to-face relationships, but it's for a lot of people more than they're currently getting.
Exactly.
So our answer is not to go find more people. Oh, I got to get places and meet people. It's to look at the people that we actually have around us already in our lives and learn how to develop better relationships.
That is so good. That is so key. That's so the book that I posted in the group, which is right here, it's called Friends for Keeps.
Mhm.
It's building relationships that last a lifetime, and it was written by Deborah White Smith. And I wanted to
Mhm.
see when she wrote it, just 2003.
It
So
looks like an older book from the cover.
so it's just really simple. I don't even know how I came across it. I totally forgot. But it's basically like the main question on the back is what's keeping you from developing close friendships? And so I'm rereading it right now.
Mhm.
Obviously, I didn't get a chance to reread the whole thing yet, but she says that the fear of intimacy, when it consumes our hearts, that prevents us from being intimate with people. And in our society now, she said that being emotionally isolated and terrified of close relationships and close friendships has actually become the norm, and it shouldn't
Mhm.
be the norm.
Mhm.
And is people are scared of three things, and this
Mhm.
prevents them from being intimate, and that is being scorned, being disrespected, or being criticized.
Mhm.
And so it prevents that connection
Yeah.
because there's so much fear in what is the other person going to do to me? What
Mhm.
are they going to say to me?
Mhm.
What are they going to do to me? And so I want to read this quote because this is true. I believe we've so mistaken amicable acquaintances for true friendships that we've become convinced that shallow relationships are as good as it gets.
Yes.
So I think some people just think what they have is what they have, and that's the best that they're going to get, you know?
Mhm.
And I don't know, I just rereading this book, it's really opening my eyes because I read it not long after a really hard time in my life where I felt utterly betrayed and just very hurt.
Mhm.
But just the way that she describes friendships, and I've never thought about this before, is that friendship is actually ministry. Like we're in the ministry of friendship for one another because the friendship, that's one of the I guess we turn the focus on ourselves.
Uh-huh.
Like, I'm going to be hurt. I'm going to be betrayed. I'm going to be scorned. I'm going to be disrespected. But it's not about us, it's about the other person. So, looking at people like Jesus looked at people, because if you really look at it, that's what Jesus did. He was in the ministry of friendship.
Yeah.
He was looking for that connection, he was looking for that deep, intimate level with people, even if it was
Mhm.
only briefly.
Mhm.
And so I can see that. I think that because women are, I guess I think women are more pulled to cliques or being in cliques
Mhm.
or seeing cliques more than men. Men really just don't care. They really don't, or they appear not to care. I
Yeah.
mean, I think my husband would say the same thing. Like, if he
Mhm.
finds interest in you and you have something that you guys can connect with, yeah, we're going to go play golf. We'll chit chat. They're not going to sit on the couch and cry necessarily together
Right.
like girls do, but they keep it pretty simple.
Yeah.
Us, I think we're too busy looking into things that why don't I fit in here?
Yeah.
Where is, why? We ask a lot of why questions.
Mhm.
Why this, why that, instead of just becoming the friend that we want to be. I think
Yes.
that's important, is being the person that we want to be
Yep.
to other people, and then allowing those friendships to grow organically.
Yes.
Because I would say that I have been guilty of trying to force friendships
Mhm.
because I felt excluded from like these people and these people and these people. Those people look like they're excluded too. So let me be friends with them. Let me let's be friends. Let's you and I be friends, and forcing the friendship instead of allowing it to grow organically.
Absolutely. And it's it's so good because we did a poll inside of our Revolutionary Woman community, and I think there was about 10 things that we listed as top 3 reasons, or three main struggles that a lot of women have in friendships. And the top 3 results came back. Number 1 was feeling like I don't fit in anywhere. And I'm going to address the bottom 2, but what are your thoughts on why that's the most prevalent one of people feeling like they don't fit in? Because I feel like that's a false assumption most of the time.
What was the top one again? I was getting on here to look. Feeling like I don't
feeling
fit
like
in.
I don't fit in. That was the number 1 reason.
Honestly, I don't know. I think we're trying to be a part of groups that maybe we're not supposed to be a part of. I think that's one of them. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes I think that, okay, so let me explain this. I wouldn't say I necessarily have a lot of friends. I know a lot of people.
Right.
And so when I do things, I like to include a lot of people. But my closest friends aren't necessarily also close to one another.
Right.
Does that make sense? So when I go out and we're in a big group, it looks like this big, huge group of friends. Well, most of these people, their connecting factor is me. And so it looks like we could be a clique, or it looks like we could just be a whole group and we're like super close friends. These are just people that I love, and I just love bringing people together. Yeah. So it can appear that way. So I think a lot of times we look at something and we think that there's a level of friendship that's there that may not even be there. Absolutely. Where it's, you know what I mean? Because I'm going to take lots of pictures. You know, I'm going to take lots of pictures with people. I'm going to take lots of selfies. I love taking selfies with people. I want to have the memories. But again, a lot of times, some of these people have met through me. And so we're just all getting together to hang out. Yeah. And so I think there can be this misconception or a misunderstanding that we think that there is a group when there's not really a group. It's just there's a connecting factor there. Yeah. Or I think that some groups do it for looks. Honestly, I think some people just put on a front, but I don't think that they're all close or they're all always on each other's side. You know what I mean? Right. I think some of it's for looks. I think that some of it has to do with the fact that we automatically discourage ourselves or dissuade ourselves or disqualify ourselves from the group because we don't look like them. We're not in the same place of life as them. And I don't think we necessarily try. You know, some people do isolate themselves. There is a difference between being lonely and isolating yourself. You know,
I've done that. I've actually done that before. Like, I'll be whining about, well, I've done it. Like, I don't have any friends to go out with. And then I'm like, well, every time they call me, I tell them no. Because I'm a huge homebody and all of my friends know that. Like, Rachel loves to be home. There's value in that, but there's also, it can cause issues too. Right. And so then what happens when you keep turning people down that are trying to include you? Well, one day you wanting to be with somebody and you realize they're all gone out to the party because they know you want to stay home.
So I do include people, but I will tell you that if I've known you to be like a party pooper and you're going to come and have an attitude, which I used to be really bad at. So I know, so it's not like I'm just like excluding people. I know that I won't even.
Well, that's
won't be invited.
I get it. No, I 100% get what you're talking about. And I'm definitely not that person. Once you get me out of the house, I'm a whole lot of fun. And I'm like, what? Why do I stay home so much? Because this is. But I completely get it. And the whole Lone Ranger thing. And sometimes I think that comes from the same place. Because the number 3 thing on the poll was fear of rejection. Because I got people to list their top 3. Yeah. I think those 2 things, the feeling like I don't fit in and fear of rejection, can play off of each other. And a lot of times we as women are the worst. My mom and I have talked about this because she's the queen, and she will, if she listening to this podcast right now, Mom, I'm calling you out, and she knows. She admits it. I tell her she is the queen of making assumptions. And when you
Mhm.
make assumptions about people or what they're thinking or whatever, that is a fast track way for you to be completely miserable
Mhm.
and feeling like no one wants you or feeling rejected. And so I think a lot of times we don't feel like we fit in because, like you said, sometimes we don't try very hard. We maybe aren't doing a great job at integrating ourselves into a group. And it, like, even when at Proverbs, it says you have to be friendly to have
Mhm.
friends.
Mhm.
And
That's
so,
Proverbs 18:24.
yeah,
A
like
man who
it,
has friends must himself be friendly.
yes. So sometimes we don't have friends because we aren't putting ourselves out there. We're not showing ourselves to be friendly. I'm not saying that's all the time. If that isn't you, don't get offended. But that is very true. Um, and then the fear of rejection, I think that's a basic human fear. Like
Mhm.
everybody deals with that. And there's no way around that. Like, in
Mhm.
order to have real friendships, we already talked about that you have to have intimacy, which requires vulnerability, which means showing up as exactly who you are
Right.
without any facades or pretending. So whenever you do that, just like whenever you love, you are setting yourself up to potentially be rejected.
Right.
That's just a fact, and there's no way to take that away. And it is, like, it's scary, but it's just a part of the deal that we almost have to accept. That's there. They might reject me, but I will never know if I don't try, you know?
I think one this just came to me when you were talking, but like I think another thing about not fitting in. See, my thing is the way that I pick my friends is they're not trying to change me,
Yeah.
because there have been friendships I've been in where people want me to be like them.
Mhm.
And I don't mean this ugly, but I don't want to be like you. I am perfectly okay with who I am. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not submitted to Christ and in my Christ likeness journey. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about being transformed into the image of Christ. I'm talking about, like, you want me to change my personality. I mean, I understand that I can come across very strong, but
Mhm.
I'm not going to back off because someone doesn't like it.
Yep.
So it a lot of times, sometimes I don't want to say a lot of times, but I think sometimes people want you to change in order for them to fit in. Like
Yeah.
they're expecting you to change.
Mhm.
And I have tried to do that so many times because I wanted people to like me. And
Mhm.
I just got to the point where I was like, okay, I, it's first of all, it's annoying.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. It takes so much time and so much energy to be somebody I wasn't. And
Mhm.
I was like, I'm done. I just got
Mhm.
to a point where I was like, I'm done. If you don't like me, if you can't handle me, then that's cool, but I'm not investing into you
Right.
anymore. Like, I don't need you to tell me, well, I used to be like you, but then I changed my personality because I figured out that people like when people are kind.
Mhm.
Like, first of all, if you're going to jab me like that, you can go ahead and just let you know, like, I'm done. I'm cutting you off. Like, I'm
Mhm.
not mad, but you're not going to jab me like that. And I've had people tell me that,
Yeah.
like, initiate, like, they are insinuating that I'm not kind, but I'm not syrupy. I'm
Because
not,
you come across strongly.
so I'm not syrupy, and I know that. So I think sometimes, not all the time, people may not feel like they fit in because they're looking for a certain type of person.
Yeah.
And if it's not their type of person, then they don't feel that way. You know what I mean? I
I
guess I was just comparing it to, like, I've had people, they like try to change. Like, I don't, people are like, you want to learn how to do this skill? No, I do not. You can
Yeah.
go do that with your other friends, but no, I don't want to I don't want to crochet. No, I don't. That's
Well,
not my thing. Like, if you want to do that, that's fine. It's just not me.
yeah,
You know what I mean? I don't
absolutely.
want to do certain things, but don't it sometimes it doesn't even have to do with, like, me not wanting to try new things, because I'm all about trying new things. It's just
Mhm.
I don't want to do that.
Right.
So just leave me alone. Let me be.
Yeah. And that's exactly why, we can't be friends with everybody. And there's nothing
Yes.
wrong with that.
Mm-mm.
We shouldn't feel like that's some sort of a failure on our part or their part. The honest truth is there's going to be a pretty small group for most people that they really have close, fulfilling friendships, and that is okay. We don't need a huge group. It's good to be introspective and look at ourselves and like, well, how can I be a better friend, or what things might I need to change? But
Yes,
that's different than someone trying to change your personality.
absolutely.
Like you can't willingly even change your own personality and it stick, because it won't stick. Like, that's having to remember to be somebody you're not will
That's called
never work.
that's called being fake. And that's definitely not
Exactly.
what I mean. Now I will tell you, I have done things to try to get people to like me in the
Oh, we've all
past.
done it.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And there was even a point in my life where I felt like I had to have a certain social status and we had to have a certain amount of money coming in our household in order to be accepted. And all of that really got broken off of me during my journey with just learning who I was in Christ and understanding that if they didn't value me as a person, what makes me think that they're going to value me because I live in this neighborhood or drive this type of car, or
Mhm.
you know what I mean? So I
Mhm.
I I definitely have been through the superficial thing.
Yes.
So I'm not going to sit here and claim that I haven't been.
Yeah.
It's just I think as you mature and you grow and you understand your identity, you understand that if people aren't going to appreciate you for who you are and want to
Mhm.
be on your team and want to be honest with you and invest in your life, and when I say that, just I think sometimes it's just being there for somebody,
Mhm.
then I you know it's not worth it to me. It's not
It's
worth
not.
stressing over.
No.
But I think the main thing is to without with if you don't feel like you fit in anywhere, is are you attempting to make the connection with people, or
Mhm.
are you just trying to jump in a group or jump into a friendship and not let it grow organically? Like
Right.
there always has to be some type of connection there to bring
Mhm.
people together.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely. So it's good to I asked these questions, and the last one was or actually the middle one was bad past experiences in friendships. And who of us have not had that? We've all had bad past experiences. And yes, it is easy for those things to jade us and
mhm,
to make us a little bit more skittish maybe about jumping into relationships. But it's just part of the whole, it's life. It is life. Not everybody that you love and not everybody that you are in relationship is going to, honestly, sometimes they're just not healthy enough to be the friend that you need.
mhm,
And so, if I'm honest, I on some level can relate to all three of these things, but I don't think that it's enough to just chalk up our disappointment with friendships to these issues. Like, I think it's important that we dig deeper and ask ourselves, so why do I feel this way? What could I have handled differently? What is my role in this? And how am I going to respond?
mhm,
It's, I talk a lot about the victim mindset. It's okay to admit your weaknesses and your struggles and your junk. We've all got it, but we can't, like, in order to not stay in that cycle, you have to take a good hard look at what was my role in this and what can I do to grow within myself to get healthy so that I don't keep taking laps around the wilderness. You know what I mean?
mhm, right.
And because the thing is our tendency as human beings when we're disappointed and hurt with other people is to build walls around our lives for the purpose of protecting our heart from future hurt. And some ways that you can know that you've built a wall, and I've said these things, are saying things like, well, I really don't need anybody. Or I've said this, I actually like being alone.
Mhm,
Like, I've said that because there is an element of truth to that for me. Like, there's nothing I love any better than a whole house all to myself. I even like going to dinner by myself. Like, I know that's weird, but I don't like it all the time.
mhm,
But to kind of, people a lot of times will take pride in that. Well, I don't need anybody. I'm fine by myself. That's a surefire way that we can know that we have built walls that are keeping people out. And it feels good. Like, it'll definitely keep you from being hurt, but it'll never get you fulfilled. and feeling satisfaction in like life-giving relationships. So it might keep the bad stuff out, but it's not going to let any of the good stuff in.
Right.
And that's what we have to remember. It can't be all about damage control. And so, like one of my personal, this is a toxic thought pattern that I tend to have. Well, if someone isn't interested in me or they can't take the real me, I'm out. Like,
Yeah.
just, you know what I mean? And sometimes that's an easy way to say, I'm not going to look at how I'm reacting that might not be good. They can just take a hike. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And
Yep.
that's a wrong way to, that's almost a self-protective mechanism for me to say, I am like I am, not going to change for anybody.
Well, I feel like that's a
The
really
way I
immature
am, then
response.
they can see more.
Yes. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, it definitely is.
The Zoom
No.
cut out and I talked on top of you and I didn't mean to. So sorry about that.
You're totally fine. I think it had a little. And like I talked about, it's a super big deal to me to feel that people are interested in me for more than what I can do for them, or just somebody to hang out with or vent on, or something surfacey. Like I have a even wanting to be around a so-called friend who repeatedly proves to me that they can't do like the whole mutual give and take that a friendship requires.
Yeah.
So, and it is true that toxic people make toxic friends. So with some people, it's just never, it's just not going to keep coming back to being very frustrated. And what I tend to do in those relationships is to kind of slowly fade away. Like I don't call, I don't ask, I don't reach out. It's, it's not that I just don't have one-sided relationships.
So
am I cutting in and out again really bad?
You cut in and out just a little bit. So I was just waiting until you were finished so I didn't jump on top of you with your words. I didn't want to interrupt you. But
okay.
One of the things that I was thinking about when we were talking about friendship, and I'm not meaning to like steer it in a different direction, but I thought it would be really funny to talk about the fact of when you were gone in Texas. And when you came back, and I was like, I texted you and I was like, so I don't want this to seem really weird, but I feel like I haven't talked to you in a really long time. And it feels a little weird. That was like one of the things that I was like,
yes, because we normally talk every day.
Every single day, even if it's just about the podcast, you know what I mean? It may not just always be about life, but sometimes it's about the podcast. And so, I just thought it was funny. I was like, I know I wasn't trying to bother you when you were down there because I knew that you were going to be slammed from like sun up to sundown. So I was like, I don't want to text her when she's down there because I know she's focusing. She needs to get her stuff done and she's in touch with her family. So when I think it was when you came back, I was like, so yeah, I just want to let you know that I'm not trying to be like weird and attached to you, but I think I'm attached to you.
I know, because even though we're not together in person, like we do talk usually multiple times every day.
Yes.
So it's like, it's like you're my sister wife or something.
That's exactly what it was. So like not hearing from you like Wednesday or Thursday, or I think it was Friday, I was like, well, I haven't heard from Rachel, because it's just like randomly, sometimes it's like first thing in the morning, we're texting each other, or, it's just periodically through the day. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times you and I are very much like, hey, this is random, but we just want you to know, you know what I mean? Like we're always picking up the phone saying, before I forget, let me tell you this. And so, yeah.
Well, that's actually funny because one of the ways that you can, if you're not sure about a friendship and maybe you're like, you feel like things are a little bit unhealthy or toxic in their friendship, one of the ways to find out how that person affects you is to distance yourself for a while, or kind of just back way off where you're not having any interaction, and do that for a couple of weeks. And see how you are affected, whether or not you're positively affected by the distance or whether you feel like a real void in your life, like something good is missing. That's a
Right.
really good litmus test. If, sometimes when you're struggling with maybe this relationship isn't good, that's just a little dose of psychology there, but that's a real way to find out how a person. That's so funny though, because I
It is
mean,
funny.
I had thought the same thing, even though I had been so busy that I was very distracted, but I had thought, I haven't talked to Lisa in days. Like,
It felt like the longest time ever.
I know, I know. It was the craziest thing. So, there are three, and guys, I had to move to a different room because my Wi-Fi, we had to move it to a different room because of work.
Oh.
And so it being further from where I normally podcast is what's creating the little lags that are going on. So I had to just get up and move my whole setup to the.
I figured that's what you were doing. I was like, I try not to laugh when you get locked up because all I can think of is, girl, you done locked up again.
And so this episode in particular has just, my dog was barking, and so I had to close my door. And then she comes in my room through the little crack in the door and is whining, wants me to put her on the bed. So I have to get up and do that. And now the Wi-Fi thing. So if anything good comes out of this, it'll just be a sheer miracle.
In
But
case you guys didn't know, we do not have a studio.
we don't. We're chasing around dogs and Wi-Fi, trying to podcast. That's why we do not have thousands of followers. Oh gosh. So there are actually three common denominators that every satisfying friendship has to have. I told you guys I did some research on this because I love this sort of thing. Y'all know I'm a psychology nerd. I love it. So the three things are, first one is positivity, and that can be joy, laughter, affirmation, encouragement, fun, lightheartedness, cheering one another on. That's all included in positivity. And social science shows that within any relationship, you guys have probably heard this before, it takes 5 positive interactions to counteract every one negative interaction. Have you ever heard that before, Lisa?
I have not, but oh my
Yes.
gosh.
So every time you have a negative interaction with a friend of some kind, it takes 5 positive to bring that relationship back into balance.
Oh
so the first thing, I know that's a lot of work, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the first thing is positivity. Like, there has to be, it can't just all be heavy and deep and dark all the time. You just won't make it. And then the second thing is consistency.
Yes.
Consistency in spending time together. Also consistency of who you are. I had this issue with a friendship where I never knew what I was going to get with this person from day to day. One day she adored me, and it was just great. It was butterflies and rainbows. And the next day it was like something had switched. And I was always trying to figure out what's wrong here. Like, did I do something, or is she just having a bad day? And it was a consistent pattern of not having consistency. And after a while, I just got tired of that. I got tired of the whole mental battle of trying to figure out what was going on.
Yep.
And picking myself apart. And I think that, maybe it was just part of her personality, but that wasn't going to change, and I couldn't deal with it. So I was like, I'm out.
I'm out.
So this is the consistency of spending time together, the history together where you get to know one another, because consistent time together leads to trust.
Yep.
You only trust somebody when you know the consistency of their behavior. So, and then we're able to feel safe when we're able to predict another person's reaction to us, when we know who they are and how they're going to respond to us in many different situations. So there has to be consistency. And then the last one is vulnerability. So without vulnerability, a rich friendship absolutely cannot happen. It's literally the foundation. This is where we share, where we reveal. We've already talked about vulnerability being so important. It leads to intimacy. It's where we let other people in to see the real us. And it's not just sharing our skeletons, and we talked about this earlier, but it's also having the freedom to share our accomplishments without it being seen as bragging.
Yes.
And someone who's for you won't have an issue with that.
Mm-hmm.
S Someone who is jealous of or not for you will not give you the freedom to talk about your good points. Obviously, if you're doing it all the time and you're just into yourself and constantly like, that's a different story, but that's not what I'm talking about here. But like being free to share our history, our dreams, and our hopes, and even our fears and weaknesses and failures without the fear that these things will be held against us or used against us at a later time.
Right.
So, vulnerability is so important. It's the key ingredient. It's what leads to intimacy and why a lot of times we feel lonely because we don't have enough. We can't go on relationships that from the past. I see this happen with the older generation. Um, they don't have any real deep connections now. They have all
Mhm.
these friends from when they were in their 30s that they did life with that they send each other Christmas cards.
Yeah.
And they say, "Well, that's my best friend." And I'm like, "You hadn't seen her in 2 years, and she lives 15 minutes down the road. That is not a best friend."
Right.
That I hate to inform you, but that is not even a friend. A lot of times we do that to make ourselves feel like we have connection when we actually don't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an escape from, like, being vulnerable enough to create a real connection and sometimes new connections with new people. So, like, at the end of the day, we all wanna feel loved, and the truth is if we wanna feel loved, we have to feel known, we have to feel seen and heard, but that means we have to be willing to open up and share ourselves. So it's this two-way street happening. And so, sometimes it's like we wonder, how can we know so many people and still at times feel lonely? And
Mm-hmm.
again, it's not for lack of people. It's for lack of the three pillars of a deep friendship, which is positivity, consistency, and vulnerability.
I
And
wanted to go back and just add on something that you said when you were
yeah,
talking about
sure.
being able to share when good things happen.
Mhm.
And I think a way to say that is to share your wins, to be
Yes.
able to share when you win.
Mhm.
And for me personally, and I think that you would agree, I think we're on the same page as this, being in Christ means we should constantly be winning
Mhm.
because he, when he ascended to heaven, he said he has to go because he's going to send Holy Spirit, because Holy Spirit would be our advantage. Like if anybody ever wants to talk about privilege, I have Christ privilege. Like
Right.
I have favor because of him. I have goodness in my life because of him. And
Mhm.
so I think it's being able to celebrate those wins with people, and they know that it's because of Christ in me and Christ working in my life that I was able to have this win. And
Mhm.
so it's not just look at me, look at what's happening. It's like, look at what God did. Let's celebrate.
Yeah.
So I think say we have to learn to celebrate other people's wins, because when God sees, oh, well, they're celebrating together, I really feel like that brings glory to him. And then he's just like, well, let me give you some more advantage. I'm going to shake some more advantage over your life. I'm going to shake some more favor over your life, that type of thing. I just think it's important to be there for the wins.
Yeah.
And then when you were talking about being safe, that goes back to, I think we've talked about this before, those four basic emotional needs that everybody needs every day. And
Mhm.
they need the to feel safe and secure. It's an actual need.
Mhm.
um, we also need that praise and affirmation. I think that's
Mhm.
important to look for in a friendship, is someone to affirm you. And when
Mhm.
you're feeling, we have those days where what I'm thinking doesn't line up with the word of God, so just somebody there to say, well, don't forget, this is what the word says, this is who God says
Mhm.
you are.
Mhm.
And having that expressed unconditional love, where
Mhm.
somebody just either shows that they love you somehow,
Right.
tells you that they love you, shoots you a text messages, just
Mhm.
wanted to let you know I was thinking about you and I love you. And then knowing that you have a purpose and a destiny. Those are four basic emotional needs that I actually think that a lot of times I use that with my children, but I
Mhm.
think that we need to realize that that is human to human, not just
Mhm.
making sure our kids are okay, but making sure those relationships okay. So for
Absolutely.
me, like, am I making sure that that person knows that I care deeply for them and that I love them? And do they feel safe in the friendship? Is there anything that I could be doing where they don't feel safe, or something I've said, that the self-reflecting, like you said, do they know that that I'm thankful for them in my life? When it talks about having a purpose and a destiny, I just like to tell people, I want you to know that I am glad that you are a part of my life, that God put it in the plan for you to be in my life. And I like to pull out people's strengths and let them know, like, I just want you to know, like, you're amazing. I treasure who you are. Like, you don't have to do anything for me. I just appreciate who you are. So just those 4 basic emotional needs are really
Yeah. And of course they extend into our friendships. Like,
absolutely.
we need what we were created to need. And, our society is not set up to be conducive to connection at all. Like, we actually do have to be intentional about it and work towards it, because the truth of the matter is that God created us for himself, but then he created us for one another. We are wired for connection. Even neuroscience has proven that the impact of a lack of connection and isolation, what it does to people's health when it's not there. There's a whole list of things that it's worse than smoking a pack of cigarettes a day to not have deep connection. It's worse than being obese. There's a whole list of actual physical health things that not having that. So we were created for that. And I also love that you brought up the point about we should be winning. Thank you for saying that, because sometimes I actually will in my head feel like I should apologize for ways that I might be winning in my life. And it's not that I don't have struggles, because I try to be honest and out with those too. But I literally had a thought like recently, and I don't know, I probably never thought I would say it out loud, but I was like, I actually just some days feel like I am living under the favor of God. Like, I know that's kind of a scandalous thing to say out loud, but I actually had that thought where, gosh, I just feel like, not that my life goes right all the time, not that it's perfect all the time, but the thing is we as true believers and Christians, like, there's no better way to live. Like, the righteousness produces goodness. It produces abundance. It gives us a different way of living, and we shouldn't be downtrodden and beaten down. And yes, we have things that we have to go through and work through sometimes, but it should be attractive to the rest of the world. And so, sometimes it can feel that not every friend is good at celebrating with you. And that is difficult. That's a difficult one for me to digest. Like, if you love me and if you're for me, because I'm so like the first one to celebrate with people that in my life, that doesn't intimidate me that they're winning.
Yes. So I will tell you, my friend Ashley, years ago, I used to live with her, and she came home and shared with us about a sermon that she heard about learning to rejoice with your friends. And so we started this thing where something good would happen. We'd say, I rejoice with you. I rejoice with you. Well, that's just something that's kept with me. Right. And I haven't always been an optimist. I literally preached a message on being a recovering pessimist, because that's what I was.
Yeah.
I was more like on the bad side of things. And I don't know, it was a lot of religion. It was a lot of how I grew up, and it just did. I don't know. Anyway, I had to change it because I was miserable and I hated being miserable. So one thing to remember, first of all, is that in Philippians, it tells us what to keep our mind on. And so what comes out of our mouth and what we find about other people that bothers us says a lot about where our mind is. So it says, think on things that are pure and holy and lovely and beautiful. Now, I'm not saying that we ignore things that are going on that aren't so good, but where are our minds, And another thing that I've recently kind of connected is that if we are not grateful, we will not mature. So, and if we're not solid with those little things, he's not going to give us more. So
Mhm.
I fully believe that, like, Jesus never lost, ever.
Yeah.
He never lost.
Yeah.
And he said, and scripture tells us we were going to do the same things Jesus did, plus more.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to give you an example, and I'm not going to use her name, but I have a friend, and I don't want to give too much information away because I don't want people trying to figure out who it is. I don't. Long story short, she is building a home.
Mm-hmm.
Her and her husband were able to pay cash for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at her and I said, that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Here's why she told me. She can't tell anybody else because people will say, must be nice.
Right.
Must be nice. Oh, it must be nice to be able to do that. When people say that, I'm like, I don't even want to be around you, because first of all, you don't know what they've done to get to that point.
Exactly.
You're acting like it was just handed to them.
Mm-hmm.
You have no idea the hours that her husband works. You don't know the stress that he might be under in his job or running his company or anything like that. You don't know how they budget their money. You don't know how much they give to the church or how much they give to people who need it or how much they give to God. You don't know.
Right.
When people say that, like, I think it was so disheartening when she shared with me things that people say to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, no, what, like, who wants to be friends with that when you're winning and
Mm-hmm.
nobody's rejoicing with you? They're all like complaining because they're jealous and envious of you because you have something that they don't.
Yeah. And you don't see the discipline that went in behind the scenes, the things that they didn't get to do, that they didn't get to buy, the new car that they forewent and bought a used car because they had a goal to be debt free. Like, there's so much behind. That's the danger of assumption.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a similar thing. Like, a lot of you and I are both homeschool moms, so we get this. But I've gotten the whole, well, it must be nice to be able to stay home and homeschool your
Oh, yeah.
kids. Not everybody
I
can
get
do
that.
that.
I get that all the time.
Actually, we had to learn how to live off of one income. That wasn't easy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our life could have gone a lot easier in many different ways. We have a
Yeah.
1873 farmhouse that we are fixing as we can pay cash for it rather than financing it, because we have one income and we're going to live within our means rather than jack our mortgage up so high that we can't live off of
Yep.
one income. We also can't buy new cars. I haven't, we haven't had two full-time incomes, so we haven't been able to buy new cars. We have to buy older cars that we can pay cash for. Like, there's a lot of sacrifice behind the scenes that the people that make the comments, well, it must be nice to be a middle-class white woman that can afford to stay home, you know? So I get it.
It's said to me. So it's like, so now I just tell people, and I tell people I have a company car and company gas and company insurance, and I sleep with my boss. That's what I tell people.
I love it.
How do you do? How do you do? I sleep with my
Good.
boss. So there you go. Who is my husband, for anybody that's listening that may not know? That's my husband. But I say I have a company car, and I say I have a company credit card and a company allowance.
That's great.
At this point, but
So that's your key, Lisa. That's how you've been doing it all these years.
the whole time. Now y'all know my secret. Now y'all know my secret. But I think that just is really heartbreaking to me, is when people can't celebrate their wins with you. I mean, like, one of my best friends, Bree, one of my best friends, Bree, they're building a house.
Yeah.
Like, hello, I can't wait to get over there. I'm about to go over there. I'm gonna sleep on her couch now. I'm gonna go over there and sleep on her couch. Like, be excited for people.
Yes.
I'm excited for people when they tell me things that God's doing in their lives. I think that's amazing.
Mhm.
I want to cheer you on. Like, yeah, like, I want to, why wouldn't I don't know. And I mean, I get it, because I used to be like a negative Nancy, and I would probably say I was definitely a jealous person and envy. Then I read Envy by Bob Sorge.
Yeah.
And that will clear up a lot of stuff in your life. He points it out. I know a lot of people are thinking, I'm not envious. You read Bob Sorge's book, you're going to realize you're envious.
Mhm.
You really
Yeah.
are, and how it affects your life. And honestly, I do think it, like you were saying, it affects your health. So, yeah, I think that that's important. Another thing that I was going to say, I don't mean to keep going. So I just think that as we get older, it's really important to discern and to, for me, and I've shared this with you before, and I don't know if I've actually talked about it on the podcast because we talk over Zoom a lot. But one thing that I did do was I forego a lot of, just, I saw red flags in a relationship and I just thought it was me.
Yeah.
And tried to give the person the benefit of the doubt and always thought it was me. And always was like, God, what is, I just really thought that I was this immature. I was never going to be able to grow up. I didn't understand what was going on. And I just felt like, I don't know. I was really hard on myself. And I was like, obviously there's some root issues here that I don't know. And it turned out that these red flags were truly red flags. And I was trying to force a friendship that didn't need to be, and ended up being very hurt by that friendship, which is no longer.
Yeah.
So you have to, you and I are big on self-reflecting, but we also need to pay attention to red flags, but be mature enough to discern the red flags. Because even now, reflecting, and I'll even, I know I run it by my friend Allison a lot. Hey, Allison, if you're listening, I will tell her, like, something will pop up in my head, like randomly, and I'll say, this has happened and I should have seen it as a red flag, but I thought the issue was me. I always took the blame. And so just learn, it's not about being cautious, it's not about being suspicious per se, but it is good to use discernment. And if there are some red flags, take it to the Lord in prayer. They may not be red flags that are detrimental. It just might need, maybe there's some clarification that we need to ask some questions, or just get to know the person better. Or they could be legit red flags and we just need to hightail it out of there.
Yeah. And another way to kind of know is, are those same things happening in your other relationships? Or is this the only relationship where you are continuing to deal with this same drama? I have a relationship like that in my life. And I finally, like, I kept thinking it was me and trying to, take the blame or change. And then I realized I don't have this problem in my other relationships. It just doesn't exist. I don't have any drama in my life outside of with this one particular person. And so that's another way to know. And I'm really glad that you brought up the topic of red flags, because that just confirmed that, because I have a whole section on red flags, but we are not going to have time to get to it. So our next podcast episode may be, girl, you need some boundaries.
That would be good,
because that would be a good place for us to talk about some of the, we talked about how to have healthy friendships, but sometimes we need to let go of things. Like, we need to put boundaries around our lives. We need to know what the red flags are. So let's do that. Let's do another episode where it's kind of dealing with that. And we'll kind of, as we wrap this episode up, I wanted to give us some take-home advice on friendships. Lisa, did you have any kind of take-home advice that you wanted to leave us with?
The one thing that, and I've already said it, but I want to reiterate, is be the friend that you want. Be the friend that you want. I want to be, the friends that I have, I want them to be fun and authentic. I want them to feel like they can be themselves. I want them to feel safe. And so that's what I try to let other people know. Like, you're safe with me. I am going to hold you accountable biblically, but I'm not going to criticize you, and I'm not going to throw you under the bus, and I'm not going to use your information against you, because that is rude. And I want to I want to have fun, and I want to be able to be myself and be vulnerable and transparent. And so I want other people to feel that way. So if you are, struggling with like fitting in or feeling like you connect with people, start being the person that you want to be. And you're going to have to, if you are not intentional about connecting, if you have to put a reminder in your phone and say, Siri or whoever, Google, remind me tomorrow at 4:00 p.m. to send a text to blank, blank, and blank, or you know what I mean? Just start trying to connect with people where you do have a small connection and start working on that. I think that's really important, is being who we want to be to other people.
That's funny because that was my number one thing. It was identify and become the type of friend you want. Girl, we are on the same page. I promise we do not plan these podcasts together at all.
We study completely separately. I mean, because it works better, because
it does.
We usually kind of fill in the gaps, but I think this is great that we're on the same page.
Yeah. So become the person that you would want as a friend. That's the number one thing. It's fine to want a friend, but you have to be that person first. And honestly, we attract who we are. So if you're attracting a lot of bad, negative, toxic people, then you really do have to say, well, what is it about me that's attracting so many of these kind of people? And we'll talk more about this one on our next episode, but set, communicate, and keep your boundaries. Decide up front what you are willing to put up with and what you are not, and stick to it. It will save you so much pain. Trust me, I've learned that one the hard way. And then just making it a priority to invest time and energy in healthy friendships or healthy potential friendships. Don't waste time with the ones that aren't healthy. Invest your energy, because we have limited time and energy, guys. I don't know about y'all, but I have a very busy life. I don't have a lot of time to hang out with people. So I have to be very selective in who I'm investing my time and energy in. That's not being stingy or selfish or whatever. It's being wise. And so,
and you want to connect with people where when you're together, there's encouragement, and you leave where you both gain something.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's just hanging out. I'm not talking about when somebody needs you.
Yes.
That's totally different. But when you're hanging out with people, you want to be able to have this exchange where you guys are able to leave and you don't feel like the life has been sucked out of you, or you couldn't be yourself with people.
Oh my goodness. I know that feeling so well. And I just very much pay attention to that lingering feeling I have when I get in the car after being with someone.
Yes.
I have my handful of people that every time I'm with them, I just feel like we could just go conquer the world together.
Yes,
or
yes.
if I went in feeling sad or down or stressed, I came out feeling better. And then there's other people that maybe nothing even particularly bad happened, but I always leave feeling either drained. I can think of one person in particular in my life that every time I leave their presence, I feel really down on myself. Like, and I don't normally struggle with that at all, but when I leave, like, I just always feel like something's wrong with me. That pay attention to those, and we'll talk more about those with the red flags and our boundaries. And then the last one is, do not allow yourself to get stuck in a relationship that has gone toxic.
Yes.
Stay open to endings. Stay open to new beginnings. Don't get stuck in a pattern. We tend to do what's comfortable, not always what's good for us, because it's comfortable. It's just what we've always done. That person's always been there. And sometimes we don't ask, is this still good for me? And so I know that we've talked about, how that throughout our lives, friendships have seasons. Some friendships, they have endings, and there is often a lot of pain and vulnerability that is involved. But if we want to become a revolutionary woman who is able to stand firm and make a real lasting impact in our world, we cannot buy into the lie that our culture promotes, that it is possible or even good to be a self-made woman. The truth is, we need one another. We were made for connection. It's important. That's why we wanted to talk about it. So guys, this is Lisa and I just gently yet boldly reminding you that, girl, you need a friend. And so until next time, we'll see you later.